lose connection, don't go anywhere. It's my Wi-Fi and it'll reset and I'll just hop right back in.
Oh, it boots itself back up?
It does, yeah. So welcome everybody to another live stream with the Apex Communications Network. As always, I am your host, Jan Almasi, and I actually have my co-host and partner in crime with me here today, officially making his appearance on a live stream video, not just as a fuzzy map dot on a screen, Mr. R.J. Holiday.
What's up, everybody? Finally figured out a solution to get a webcam and computer working in the house so I can make this work. So like he said, I'm not just a blob on a map and then you can hear me squirreling off in the background and you don't know where the hell I am. So
now you can squirrel off in person.
Yeah, that's good. And actually the webcam on this is actually pretty good.
Yeah, no, you've got really good lighting and everything else. So two things. One, everybody's been asking me what my hair looks like underneath the hat, so I figured I would let it full send today. As you can see, this is not my standard every 2 weeks on the money, high and tight, skin on the sides, two on top. Not that I've ever gotten that style of haircut before, but we'll just move right on into introducing our guest of the day. And if you look at the title, you know, we talked about the digital future and pivoting during a pandemic. And as I'm sure everybody is probably tired of hearing the word pivot at this point, and pandemic, and everything else. But we're going to bring that up in a couple of different ways during this conversation that I think is going to bring, I hope will bring a lot of value to everybody that ends up tuning into this. One of the big reasons why I wanted our guests to specifically to talk about this subject is that John has been a huge mentor to me since the beginning of Apex, really. And I say the beginning of Apex not as the beginning of the blog, but from the initial thought process of this actually turning into some type of company. We met John actually for the second one.
That was a fun day.
Yeah, so we went up and we went to an entrepreneurial venture, and we met John at this location, and essentially our original business model and pitch, we kind of got ripped to shreds that day.
Shit on.
Yeah. And so it is probably one of the best days in Apex history, because we were planning on going for a physical location and all this other kind of stuff, which that day was a very rude awakening to all the holes that we had inside of our business model.
But we didn't know what we're doing.
We had no idea.
That's why we were up there.
I still have no idea what I'm doing. I just make it sound like I do. And so we met John. He gave us a bunch of advice, and he's been involved in the process ever since. He didn't have to be. There was no reason or rhyme to like him required to reach out to us as a mentor or anything like that. It was all just him being extremely passionate about what he does. And what he does is really, really help people inside of the digital space, which is
sorry, John.
You're good. That's exactly what I was going to leave.
Take over.
Introducing you.
So I was just going to say I'm passionate about helping people, particularly in Northeast Ohio, who are starting up, because I've been in this business now for 35 plus years, and I was like you guys, in the 1980s. So I've lived through a lot of a lot of disruptions in the industry, whether it be the Black Friday in the 80s or to the .com bust in the 2000s, early 2000s, or obviously the Great Recession of 2008, 2009. So as I wind down my career, I realized I got a lot of experience and knowledge that I sort of, besides my day job, I like to volunteer as a mentor to help entrepreneurs and startups, particularly around the area of business development and market fit to some degree.
And so now, before we really dive down into the core of what we're going to talk about today, one thing that I was curious on is, as you've kind of watched us grow, over the course of the last, coming up on almost 2 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is crazy to me that we've known each other that long at this point. But some of the major things that we've kind of shifted in, or which is going to tie into our conversation today, is not necessarily relying on a physical location, the power of remote working capabilities, the power of branding and digital presence, and all of these different things that the landscape is now completely shifting because of COVID-19. So as everybody will see, we have this list of questions that we're going to go over. But the first thing that I'd like to ask you, John, is really, you could start wherever you would like. But since the pandemic has hit, as far as you can tell inside of where businesses are currently, how has the landscape permanently changed because of this pandemic when it comes to market fit and being able to get your business out there?
Great question. I will say, let me, a little background and a little bit of a story that leads into this, which is, I've been making a living for, 25, 30 years, traveling on airplanes, working face-to-face with clients. I do a lot of workshop facilitation around, in these days, around using design thinking and other human-centric design, particularly as it pertains to sales processes. And all of a sudden, I've run 30 plus workshops in the last 3 years, probably 100 or more in the last 10, 15 years, all face-to-face, which requires me traveling many times to Europe, Australia, Dubai, you name it, South Africa, Canada, US. That's all of a sudden changed. And I don't think it's going to necessarily go back. I think we're experiencing a new normal. I believe that once we figure out, and so I've been spending the last, month trying to figure out what I do and convert it to a virtual or a digital or a remote landscape or a delivery model. And that's really tough. It's a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. And I think to your point, yes, I think things will shake out a little bit, but I think, the economics, the accountants and others will start to realize that, I spend $5,000, it's $5,000 a week sometimes on travel. I haven't spent a dime in the last 2 months. So, trying to be more efficient, pulling people across time zones. If you have got, there is some real cool, just like what we're doing today, right? We are all in 3 different locations. We've got the technology set up. We're sort of learning it. And so I think I would expect the go forward will be more of what we're doing now and less of what we were doing, whatever it was 35 days ago.
Pandemic, yeah.
Yep.
Now something with that I'd like to just have all 3 of us do right now is talk about our setups, because that's something I'm getting a ton of questions on is, in order to, do this professionally and whatever else, I have to invest thousands of dollars and, for this audio quality and stuff. But if you'll see, we have 3 very different audio setups here. So I'll start and just kind of go through my setup here, and then we'll all 3 of us can hit that just so people can get an understanding of how diverse all of the technology really is. So my microphone right here is a Shure SM7B. This is not something that I would recommend for somebody that just wants to be able to live stream with their friends, or to have a business meeting even. This is like a $500 microphone, and we use it more for the podcasting side, right? I won't get into the stand or anything, but in order to have this mic running, I have to have it routed through a Behringer UMC 404, which is a mixer, right? Or an interface, and plugged into the computer through USB. So my setup is kind of complicated. If you're, a little bit familiar with the audio landscape, it's not too bad, but my setup isn't necessarily something I would recommend for somebody that just wants to be able to plug and play. But I have a feeling that both of your guys' setups would be relatively easy for somebody.
The one I'm using right now absolutely is. So if we're talking like my usual setup when we're recording the podcast and whatnot, I have a Yeti and my full gaming computer and monitors and all that stuff over there. But the room is kind of a mess, so I refuse to hook up a webcam to that. This is actually just a standalone all-in-one Mac desktop that comes with a pre-built-in speakers to it, as well as a pre-built-in a webcam. And as you can see, it's actually surprised the hell out of me. Is really good quality. And before I hooked my headset up to it, I tested and was messing around with the onboard microphone that's built into the monitor itself, and that was really good too. So that's all in one that you can buy. There, I have no Ethernet cable hooked up to this or anything. It's just over Wi-Fi. It's literally just a wireless keyboard, the power cable, and then the monitor itself, which has the computer built into it. And then this headset, which from what Jan tells me, the audio quality on it's pretty good. This is pretty much a mid to high tier like gaming headset. So it has 2 different channels on it where you can integrate into different audio platforms like Discord or even the audio platform that this uses. So I have like a shifter on the back that would go, it would pipe in your guys' voices more or whatever else is coming up through the computer. Like if we were playing a video or streaming something else.
And
And
so it has
this
independent
is
volume control. That's
yeah,
cool.
this is Bluetooth as well. It just has a dongle in the back of the computer. Didn't have to set up any software or anything like that. $150 headset, and basically you get everything that you need to listen with. Probably one of the better high tier audio quality headsets in the industry, as well as it comes with a microphone, so you don't have to go and buy, like you said, like a $500 mic just if you're working from home.
That's awesome.
Cool.
All right, John, you're up.
So I've had the luxury of basically working from home for since the 90s. So my home office is pretty well set up, but I've been since now I spend literally every day on a WebEx or a Zoom meeting or something. I've been experimenting. So the microphone you see here in front of me is actually one that I bought after talking to Jan and RJ, because one of the reasons we got talking is we're sort of trading. I'm trading sort of business acumen and experiences, and they're sort of teaching me how to get into the podcast business, which is something I'm looking to do. So I took a podcasting class. This is none of this means anything to me, but it's an ATR USB microphone. It was less than $125, and it was recommended by by the guy that was teaching the class. I bought a simple stand, and it plugs right into my laptop. I'm just experimenting today with the audio is going through the microphone, and then the in my ears audio is going through a set of iPod Pros, which my daughter and son-in-law bought me because they are living here at our house while they escaped from New York. So it's a thank you present. So these are really cool. They're noise canceling, and I've actually this is probably the 3rd time I've used them. So. And then I've got just a plain old Lenovo laptop, and then I got a sort of a big screen behind it that I can, look at other stuff and use for displaying or sharing screens while I'm on a myriad of Zoom meetings and WebExes and whatever.
Yeah. So for those of you, how much are the iPod Pros? Do you know?
I don't know. I didn't ask. It was a gift.
Yeah.
I thought they were like 140, 150 or something like that, I think.
Yeah, so we're essentially looking at, like, if with RJ setup, getting everything wrapped into one for $150 or less. And John's setup, you've got like $200 or less, $250 or less for a good setup. And even my setup with the Behringer drive, the XLR cables, and the stand, and this fancy little dynamite stick that I won't even get into what that does because it's going to be a lot of technical talk that people won't care about. Even my setup is under $1,000, right? And so what I tell people is, like, when you get recommendations and people are telling you need, $1,500 worth of equipment to start, they're lying to you.
You really don't.
You really don't.
I agree.
Don't let people suck you into that landscape. And this is kind of will perfectly transition us over into this next section, which is really focusing on remote work, and how that's going to affect the way that businesses are structuring themselves. John, if you were a business owner inside of this realm and they've just migrated all of this remote work stuff over, how do you foresee them, or what advice would you give them to potentially explore how it could fit for their business in the long term after quote unquote COVID?
To think about that.
I mean, there's a lot of variability with that question. It depends on industry and all that other stuff, but.
Well, it also depends if I take the cynical view or the practical view. So I have a bit of a cynic in me because I've been around and I've got a lot of war wounds, and I fight with a lot of accountants and other, as a publicly working my day job with a publicly traded company. It's, the cynic in me says the accountants are going to love this because they're going to shift all of the financial responsibility back down to the employees eventually. Right. So, I mean, most of the stuff you see here, I've paid for out of my own pocket. My company has not paid for it. Now, it's not true with a lot of organizations are a little nicer than the one I work for and are actually helping their employees get set up and working remote. Mine did it when they kicked us out of the offices in 2000 or 1995 or whenever it was. But it's one of those things, depending on what you're doing. There's a lot of productivity, and I'll tell you, the commute's great, right? For me, I've been doing it for years. I literally get up, walk downstairs, make a cup of coffee. Sometimes I take a shower and shave and stuff, and then I walk up a second set of stairs to my home office, which is above my garage. And it's a 2-minute commute, right? I'm not getting in a car. I'm not dealing with the traffic. I'm not going to an office, whatever.
I respect it.
And it's nice. Can be a little lonely. So I do think there will be this need for humans to get back together. And for certain things, I think being in a room with people is going to go forward. But I think in a lot of times, and again, particularly in large dispersed teams, so our world is, I work with people in India, I work with people in Europe, I work with people in all over, and I may have, that's almost a 24-hour time zone in some cases on the phone, and so being able to work virtually like this is pretty cool. What I've noticed, which is really interesting, and I don't know if this is true with other organizations, like I said, we've been doing this for a while. But it was really just conference. It was like virtual conference calls. We'd use WebEx or Zoom or something, but nobody would be on video. Everybody would just be on a phone, right? Or they'd just be on with just the audio, no video. All of a sudden, I'm noticing people are turning their video on because I think they miss that human to human. I mean, I can look you guys in the eye and I can see what you're doing, right? And I found that actually refreshing. So finally, people are saying, hey, I can actually have a little bit. I can watch people's body language. I can look, I can see what they're doing. I can also call them out if they start, looking, if all of a sudden I see a guy going like
this. They're fiddling.
Yeah. Or they're, they're playing with their phone or something. Yeah. So it's been cool in that respect. And as like I said earlier, I think we'll learn a lot of good things out of all of this, and those will probably carry forward. And then there'll be some things where we'll try to migrate back, right. But I don't think the way we knew the world will ever be exactly the same as it was, like, let's say, last December.
Yeah. Well, I believe that there is some truth to that meme that you see on Facebook where it's just like, oh, so I guess I have been able to do my job from home for the last 10 years. It's it comes down to the fact it never had to have been done before.
Right.
So, and everybody likes kind of sticking to the old rule. If it's not broken, don't fix it. Mm-hmm. So until it has to be fixed, and now people are like, actually, this isn't half bad. Like I can still productively do my work. The company isn't upset. It's not like there's a lack in production or anything like that. So what is the point of me getting in my car and taking an hour commute? And wasting that gas or time not spent with your family or whatever it boils down to, if it's capable of doing it now. And now the thing is, the general public whose jobs are able to do that are going to be looking at their employer like, I just did this for the last 2 months. So there's no excuse of why I can't stay home and do it. Like, why are you making me come in?
Well, and you can take that to the next step, which I've done in probably in the last 10 years or so, where I like to call myself a self-proclaimed digital nomad. Oh. I've learned to work anywhere. I can work as long as I got a good internet, my laptop, and a good cell phone connection. I can
make it work.
Fake my job anywhere in the world. And so I've gone down to Florida or South Carolina for 2 days and rented a house, and I've set up my home office in that house. Mm-hmm. Just like my kids are back here. My daughter, who's in her 30s, and her husband, like her office is now the room she grew up in, and his office is my dining room table. And, you know, we're all working in our own deals. And so once you learn how to be comfortable, and once you learn the tricks, and once you sort of build your, you know, your mobile office, you can pick it up and go anywhere. You can work out of a hotel. You could work, like I said, you can work on the beach. You can work, you know, you can go over to Europe and spend a week in London. You just may have to work on the, you know, time zone problems, but you can still be really productive.
Absolutely.
All over the world.
Yeah, and so there's a couple of points that I would bring up inside of that space, right? And like RJ said, there's going to be people saying, "Hey, I just did this. Why do I need to?"
Yeah, I feel like there's going to be a decent amount of people that are going to, when they're getting hired in at places, are going to be like, okay, so what are your policies, or what are the company's policies and thoughts on working remotely?
Right.
Because, I mean, personally speaking, I do my best work when I'm comfortable. Just like I sleep the best when I'm, you know, sleeping in the same bed every night and whatnot. If I'm uncomfortable at work, or, you know, I find things bothersome there, or people bothersome or whatever, I'm going to be more productive at home or wherever I'm remotely working from than inside that office.
Right. Now, and so there's another layer of this that I'd like to add on before we transition into kind of the next point. And this is something that I know that me and John have had conversations about in the past, but it's the difference between the mentality of the 8-hour workday versus tasks, and people kind of switching. And I think that this remote workplace environment is kind of forcing people to realize that, oh, maybe a perfect example is when I was in the military. They gave me this task at one point that was basically auditing a bunch of data sheets, right? And taking all of this data and turning it into, you know, Excel stuff that works for them, and making sure that the data wasn't double inputted and yada, yada, yada. And the person that they'd had doing it hadn't had a whole lot of experience with Excel in the past, right? So it was taking them, you know, exponentially longer than it was taking me to get that done. And so they told me, hey, here's the task. You know, I was working 4 10s at that time, and they were like, you have until the end of the week to get it done. And I was like, okay. And then 8 hours later, it wasn't even the end of the first day, I said, hey, like, these Excel sheets are done. Can you look at them? And then what am I supposed to do now? They're like, hold on, time out. You already got that finished. We don't have anything prepared for you to do. We're planning on you doing that. And so people are realizing now that, you know, with this remote work capability, with the increased technology, with people that are approaching things from different angles, they're actually experimenting, I know, on the military side of the house, with this task-oriented schedule, where it's not you come to work from this time to this time. It's here's your set of tasks for this day or this time period, get them accomplished, and this is your payout at the end of that.
Interesting concept. Yeah, it you know, to me, it comes down to trust. I think a lot of the employers that I have dealt with that, like I said, because I've been in this world for a long time, and the way I'm measured is pretty straightforward. So I'm either making it or I'm not, and that shows up in my paycheck. So it's very simple. Every month I can tell whether or not I'm meeting my goals and business needs. But I see a lot of employers were very reluctant to, just from a trust standpoint, and so clearly now they have no choice. So hopefully, as RJ pointed out, I think maybe they'll come around and say, you know what, yeah, we can trust my employees, particularly if they go to a task-oriented model, because you know, I'm sure people are sitting in the office and, you know, playing Mario Brothers or Tetris or
Minesweeper,
something, whatever you guys play these days, you know. And then the second thing I've noticed, which is a positive, I always like to watch the positives on this whole craziness, is for finally people are realizing that the work is just part of the game here, right? Because all of a sudden now, I'm seeing, I mean, we're getting memos and guidelines and presentations and educations and stuff on how to deal with remote workers who are dealing with children and spouses. And I mean, for me, I'm dealing with my elderly parents. I got to go out once a week and go shopping for them, right? Because they're confined to where they live. They're not allowed off the campus. So all of a sudden, I think this human element, which will probably lead into some of the other empathy stuff we're talking about, but all of a sudden, the employers are
You're
starting to
doing my
realize
job for me, Mr. Kundtz.
that there's a bit of human element. And oh, by the way, you may not work from 8 to 5. You may get up at 6 and work from 6 to 7 or 7:30, then feed the kids and teach, do some homeschooling, and then get on a bunch of conference calls. And, so you're still putting in probably, I put in longer days when I started working at home. A million years ago, it was, because you're always on. It would be, I just finished dinner, but it's 9:30. So why don't I go check some stuff out? And then all of a sudden it's midnight. And you go, oh crap, I just another 3 hours.
Yep.
And so there is some discipline that actually, I think, where you've got to be able to literally create the mindset of I'm working now, and now I'm not working, and and so you definitely, because otherwise it literally, and this is not new, because now we're all connected 24 hours a day, right? Our iPhones and everything else. But if you're not careful, most jobs can consume you 24 hours a day. If you're, I got enough work to keep me busy for, 24 to 7 days a week. If I, really didn't put a time limit and say, okay, now it's time to stop and go decompress and get some exercise and just go hang with the family or whatever.
Oh yeah. I will say that this last, almost 2.5 weeks now that I've been in this apartment, self-quarantining, the one day I looked at the clock and I realized it was 4 o'clock in the morning and I was still going. And that day I had worked on and off, like between calls, coding, negotiations, other stuff throughout the day. That was a 20-hour day. And I was like, okay, that's got to stop. Because
it's not healthy.
Well, yeah, because, but like you get sucked into this zone, like you said. And the thing for me right now is that, my bed is right there. This is the office. So I'm laying there sleeping and I'm trying to figure out problems inside of my head because I have like this sick issue that if I am trying to solve a problem, I can't stop until it's done. And then I'm just laying there staring at the workstation like, it's right there.
Yeah, and those emails are coming in, and there's this thing you need to work on. There's some contract you need to do. There's something. I think that was the day I think I went to bed and I woke up the next morning, and I get up pretty early, and so I think I saw something come from you well past midnight, and then I think I saw something coming in around 5 or 6 in the morning as well.
Yeah. Yep, that was probably one of those days. And that discipline is very important, 110%. Like when people are starting to get into this space, that's something that I would advocate for. If you're an employer that is potentially looking to move into that space, take some time to look into what are some of these things that people are going to encounter at their homes. What types of advice can I give them to potentially do this kind of stuff? And take a hard look at what a task. How could you potentially adapt your business model to be more around a task-oriented type of schedule? Because I think that really is two-folded. If it's possible for your business, one thing it does is it allows a little bit more freedom inside of your employee schedules. But the second thing it does is that it gives you a more solid way to gauge their performance because they're checking off tasks, one after another, or you assign them this set of thing that they need to get done over a set of time. And then it's not just them clocking in and out and playing Minesweeper for 4 of the 8 hours that they were sitting at their workstation. RJ's like guilty. I think that actually pretty much leads us. I'm actually going to switch around these last 2 questions so that everyone's that's looking at the Facebook. I think that the way that the conversation is going right now, we'll hit number 4 first and then move to number 3. So number 4 is why empathizing with an end user is extremely important, especially right now. So we'll do this in 2 separate sections, right? The first section, we'll talk about being an employer and empathizing with your employees. And then the second section, we'll talk about being a business and empathizing with where your customer base is. Okay. So section 1, being an employer, and why is it important to empathetically understand where your employees are at right now?
Want me to go?
Yep.
So, we sort of hit on it a little bit, but all of a sudden, I think from an employer and as a manager or an executive perspective, what I see is every person and we have a, you know, very diverse workforce now, right? We've got people in their, all the way from their 20s all the way up into their 70s sometimes, right? So we've got multiple generations here, and everybody's got a different something going on. And so, especially now that we're sort of forced into a certain habit or work environment, you know, you've got to empathize with the single mom that's trying to educate her 2 children at the same time as do her job, or empathize with the guy who's in his 60s that is trying to deal with his 85-year-old parents, right? Or, you know, or the college kids, the people who have college kids, and all of a sudden they've gone from being empty nesters to all of a sudden their college kids are back, and they're, you know, they can't figure out, you know, so you've got to sit down and understand and empathize with everybody's situation, because we're dealing with so many different elements that we probably were dealing with before, but because of what's going on with, especially here in Ohio, with the, you know, stay-at-home stuff, it's all of a sudden putting, you know, and some people don't have the space. I mean, you know, think about
That's
putting
true.
a family of 5 or 6 into a 3 or 4 bedroom like you're in a 1-bedroom apartment. Your bed, your office, and everything is there. I mean, so people are under all different circumstances, and you know, a lot of it's out of their control. Not to mention those that obviously, unfortunately, have been, you know, caught up in you know, the restaurant industry or the hotel industry or the travel industry, right? I mean, all of a sudden you're sitting there doing nothing, have nothing to do. So you've got to really, you know, don't just assume everybody's got the same problems or the same situation as you do.
Right.
I mean, when we talked to JP in Germany, it's even very similar over there. What did he say? It was him and his wife, and then his brother and his wife, and then their parents.
Yep.
And they like retrofitted their
6 people in a 3-bedroom flat.
They said that they like retrofitted their living room like into little work cubicles, because all of them are still working like same time during the day, and they're like, oh, I'm a high five away from my sister-in-law, and she's on a conference call, and my brother's over here talking to somebody else,
just separated by curtains in the
living room. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. It's I mean, that's my daughter and her husband, the ones that live in New York City. You know, they were saying they were going to kill each other. They were only starting this like for a couple of days, and they literally, that's when they got in it. They went and rented a car, and they got up. They left at like 4 in the morning, 4 in the afternoon, and they drove here. And I said, you know, come here. We're out in the country. You can have your room back. You know, and then it's like, so yeah, it's. They said that's been for them. That's been the best thing. It's a pain in the butt being out of their apartment, but they said, even there's just the 2 of them they couldn't have a private conversation with their business, you know, and it was really hard. Yeah. And so that's the kind of stuff you got to be sensitive to. I tell you what, I've seen more dogs on video conferences in the last 30 days. So, I mean, people are starting to loosen up a little bit, and or, you know, the kids. Yeah, I get mine's right down here. Right?
Come here.
You know, or, you know, the kids walk in or something, and people are starting to realize that, you know, we don't have to be all stuffed shirts with this stuff, right?
Right. I think ours is.
There he goes. Yeah, I mean, I've had 100 calls like that where people show up, you know.
So I actually think that's a very interesting observation there, right? This more organicness that's happening inside of these meeting spaces right now. Right. And Apex has been a proponent of that since we first started. Right. I mean, we just well, I won't say that we coined it because it's not quite official yet. But our phrase, right, empathetic mass communication, that empathy and being able to be organic and true and raw with another person is really what's forming those relationships. And I think and I've seen the same thing inside of Zoom meetings. You know, I was on a Zoom meeting the other day, and a woman's child she like had to drop her phone really quick and get off the Zoom because her 2-year-old was trying to take a swan dive off of the couch. Right. And so she was like, I'll be right back. Like, I gotta go save my kid
running around in his diaper.
Yeah. And so like, but people, like, we were all laughing and we were like, hey, like, you know, we get it. And then it started a conversation about how other people were dealing with the same things with their kids. And it was beautiful, right? People started connecting, and they started showcasing these other portions of their lives that have never happened in the corporate setting, really.
And a year ago, the employee would have been just hysterical, right? They would have been, it's just, and then the manager, if he was on the phone, would have been upset, right? So
Yeah.
now, so, you know, and for why? Who cares? We all have kids, we all have this, we all have dogs, we all have
There,
stuff, right?
there's definitely a different dynamic of a conference call from work and a conference call from your couch.
Yeah.
And that type of human interaction that you don't get at the office, I think is bringing a lot of employees closer to their employees and the people that they're working with as well. I mean, it makes everybody a little bit more relatable, because it's easy to sit there and say, oh, we're all going through the same stuff, blah blah blah, we all feel what other people are feeling, but you know, that's just at a very face value, until, like you said, you have a 2-year-old and you see someone else's 2-year-old swan diving off the couch or running around buck naked in the background or whatever. It brings a closer sense of, okay, yeah, we're really in the shit together here.
Right. Well, and that's what I love about it, is that it's bringing out that raw human side, that and reminding people that we've all got, you know, skeletons in the closet. We've all got random things that happen to us throughout the day. We all have like these awkward situations that we encounter at home, whether it's with kids or we're fighting with, you know, a significant other, or we're feeling depressed or whatever, because I've had people inside a Zoom call straight up say, you know, I'm thankful that I was able to be here because I'm going stir crazy not being able to talk to people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I heard that a lot, actually.
And then on the flip side of that, people are understanding that there's such a thing as Zoom like overload, and realizing that you can, if you're an introvert, you can still feel completely drained at the end of a workday and not have left your house.
Yeah, absolutely.
I realized that hardcore the other day. I had back-to-back Zoom calls from like 9 a.m. to like 3 p.m. the one day, and I got done at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was like, just brain melted.
Yeah,
like,
I bet.
I was just completely done with, and people don't think it, or they're starting to realize that digital fade is there. And it's something that we're going to have to watch out for. So I mean, we could go on and on and on about all these different dynamics and everything else. But I think that really what this all kind of boils down to is that being empathetic, whether it's with your employees or your customer base, and understanding what they're going through, and not trying to push your agenda onto them, but it's your responsibility right now to say, listen, this is where we're at. This is what we need to do. What do you need from me? I think that needs to be the conversation that's happening. Is this is, you know, I'm, as a business owner, this is what I need to get done in order to make sure that we're sustainable so that you can get a paycheck. What can I do for you to support you in this? Versus the alternative, which would be, this is what I need to get done as a business. This is how we've done it. This is how I'm going to try to push that same agenda, and whether it's uncomfortable for people or not, get them to do it. You know, it may work in the short term and you may stay sustainable, but it's, you know, it's not going to be beneficial for you in the long term at all.
Well, it's funny. I mean, if we want to shift to sort of the customers facing side of this discussion, if that makes sense, is that okay? Yeah, I mean, I've been actually doing a bunch of research on this, just for my own trying to, as I said, I've been spending multiple years doing, you know, face-to-face facilitated type workshops, mostly around trying to work on human-centric, or, you know, empathy. I call it empathy to transformation. And so I sort of sat down yesterday for another, it's funny we brought this up because this is totally not for this call, but I said, I saw something and I said, let's think about our day, right? What's my day? And what's my day now that it's May 22nd, since May 22nd, which is when Ohio went to, you know, stay at home.
Oh, March 22nd.
March, sorry, yes. I can't read it by my notes up here on my board. You know, my day is simple. I mean, I'm sort of a geek, right? I'm a little techno geek. I'm not very.
You're in good company then, my friend.
Yes. Well, you guys are way ahead of me. But, you know, I get up every morning. I step on my scale. That's a digital scale. It sends my weight and a whole bunch of other junks to my Apple I. You know, my sleep stuff comes off my watch. I go to my Keurig and I make a cup of coffee. I search for my Warby Parker glasses. I get on I have a treadmill desk in my office. So I get on my Trek desk and I start
walking. I need.
Yeah, they're great. If you have an old treadmill, it's great. But and then I read a book on my Kindle, and I'm dyslexic, so I actually read the book and listen to the audio file through Whisper Sync. I go shave with Dollar Shave Club. Then I go to work, and I'm on LinkedIn trying to do some social selling. I'm on Slack with my peers. I'm on 1,000 WebExes and Zoom meetings. We're using other collaboration tools, and then I sort of settle down, and I the Chewy.com's been delivered during the day for my dog. I order food through DoorDash. I sit down and do Netflix. I'm out of beer, so I order beer online and have it delivered through Craft Cellar, right? And then I go to sleep on my Casper mattress that I bought. Right? All those things are what I would call disruptors in the industry, and we want to call them digital disruptors, but I heard a better term the other day called experience disruptors. Right? The reason we do all of these things, and the reason why they're beating the crap out of the traditional guys is they have improved the experience. And the reason they improve the experience is because they've taken a step back, whether either by design or by just sheer luck, but they've been able to design things that are empathetic to the user, and so they understand what the user's thinking and what they need and what they do and how they feel, and then they take their product and services and they make it better and they disrupt the industry. Right? It's sort of you're either Uber or Lyft, or you're the taxi cab industry. You're either being disrupted or you're the disruptor. And these disruptors are, I think, successful. And then by this apply, I gave you sort of a B2C example, but it's true in the B2B market too. If you're selling to them, if you take a step back, understand what your clients are thinking and how they're feeling and why they're buying. Not so much. Customers don't want pushy sales. Matter of fact, they don't want salespeople at all. In fact, they do 70-something% of the buying before they actually even engage a salesperson. So the only way you're gonna be successful is if you're sort of in there with them in a non-threatening, in a social sort of centric way, a human-centric way to help them through their buying process. So,
do you think that inherently that goes hand in hand with ease of use?
Absolutely. So there's a whole user experience in there, right?
Yeah.
And so we're all used to, I mean, I throw stuff away if the user experience, it could be the greatest app and the greatest thing in the world, but if the user experience stinks, I'm like, forget it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
If the business, I'm refinancing my mortgage, right? Because they're cheap. Well, I'm not, they're all the same, and I'll give or take a couple of, points essentially. Yeah. So I'm going after the one that's got the best experience, the one that's the easiest to do business with, the one that's giving me the least amount of headaches, the one that's, makes it easy for me to, upload my W-2 and my tax forms, whatever crap they need. And
Gotcha.
and I'm not going to go the days of me going into the bank and sitting down with a banker and I have to sign a pile of papers that thick. Those are gone.
Yeah.
And so it's all about we've come. And the reason I go through that diatribe of what we do is because we've all gotten accustomed to these great user experiences.
Absolutely.
And so we expect that. And so if you're selling, particularly B2B, you got to sort of take a B2C mentality as you're trying to prospect to your clients.
It makes sense. I mean, like, personally speaking, I will not order pizza from you if I can't do it online. I'm not calling you. So
that's funny, but that's a perfect example.
Yeah. For whatever reason, I've always hated to have to call in and order pizza. And it's not, the issue is I've never had a problem talking to anybody face to face, but calling and order pizza gives me anxiety for some reason. I'm like, I'm not going to do it.
Easier to do it on your terms. And the way you're sort of not, I always feel like I'm bothering people. I mean, I get to the point now, partly because of, being sensitive to who's touching my credit cards and stuff like that. I'll avoid stores that won't use Apple Pay.
Yeah.
Right.
Good point.
It's goofy stuff like that, and I may be a little wacko sometimes, but but that's because it's a great user experience. I don't
Right.
have, nobody has to touch it. I don't have to touch the
Yep.
stuff. I just put it up there and it goes,
Happen,
you know? And so that's, I think, from a empathy perspective, going back to sort of tying this together, is if you can walk in your customer's shoes or your prospect's shoes and really understand, what first you identify that persona, what that person is, but then a lot of sales stuff stops at the persona. They like try to identify buying personas and junk like that. But what I found is you got to take it to the next level. And that's sort of how we got cooked together was, all right, I got these people, these personas that I'm trying to sell to, but let's really understand. Let's empathize with them. Let's really get in, become them. And really, like I said, it's real simple. You can see it in the back. I got one. I don't know how to do that. There.
Yeah.
That's an empathy map. It's actually me. I empathy mapped myself to try to figure out what I was going to do when I grew up. But it's, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? What am I saying? What am I doing? It's really healthy. I do it, and then it's actually why that's why I've been hooked up with you guys, because I'm like, I'd really like to build my brand by podcasting, and Ron and I have had this discussion, and then I want to figure out how to give back to the community on stuff like we're doing here today, and just sort of let people pull out all this crap that's been sitting there growing cobwebs inside my brain for the last 3 decades.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's sort of a diatribe.
Well, I think
I like it.
I think it's a perfect time for you to kind of clear your mind of all that with the work landscape that we're moving into now because of all this.
Yeah.
It like I said earlier with, people now realizing that their jobs can be done at home or whatever. Same thing with you've believed in these work ethics and how you relate to your end user for years now, but wasn't really as prevalent or in the limelight due to the way that the businesses were functioning before March 22nd of this year or whatever.
Yeah.
Now it's kind of like, okay, well, if we're not going to go back to that, and you have to empathize more with your customers and your employees and that stuff, everything that you've talked to us about over the last few years and the stuff that you've told us that you've been brainstorming over and trying to flush out, and how to make it marketable and how businesses in this day and age should listen to it, has finally come to fruition, where now it's going to be more prevalent than ever.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, a lot of the things that Apex is offering right now is essentially direct. It's direct ramifications of conversations that we've had, and then experiences that me and RJ have had, and because we used to do full service social media management.
Horrible.
And and it sucks. Like,
it was terrible.
It's very in depth. It's very time consuming. And so between you helping us empathize and identify pain points, and then our own pain points, that's essentially why we came up with the things that we do, is to solve these really time consuming pain points for people to strategically strengthen the position of their branding in the digital space, which kind of leads us into this next question. But before we move on, I'm going to say hello to a couple of people, and then I want to mention this interview that we did with Shawaiz Bahati. So Tyler King, Kyle, Haley, Aishani, Athresh, Lex, Haley Nutter, Brianne, Amanda, Tyler, welcome, Kylie, Keenan, Addie, Alenka Bashilova, Ahoy, Gina, Kendra, Danielle, and on and on and on. Logan, Corey, Ashley. Cool. We've had a pretty good amount of people show up for this those far. I appreciate you guys coming out.
Yes, absolutely.
Me too. Thank you, guys.
Tuning in right now, we are in the middle of a conversation with Mr. John Kundtz, who has been a mentor for us here at the Apex Communications Network for the last 2 years, and is deeply experienced in the realm of empathy and connecting with end users, as well as building businesses inside of the digital space and maximizing their ability to use the resources they have available to them as far as sales goes. So this interview that I want to mention is an interview with Shawaiz Bahati. And if I'm saying that wrong, Shawaiz, you can yell at me later. What up, Shawaiz? Actually, he just joined the chat. What up, dude? I'm just talking about your episode. So Shawaiz is actually in Arizona right now, going through a master's program for human factor engineering and user experience. And he went through the psychology program at Walsh University, graduated and didn't really feel like he was going to fit in that traditional psych space, and wanted to find something different to really push himself to the next level. And he found this master's program at Arizona State that is specifically tailored towards human factor engineering and user experience. It's one of the new, a brand new program. It's only been around a little bit of time, right? But it's this field surrounded essentially a master's level, a graduate level program centered around user experience and engineering that experience specifically to make sure that people understand how much that actually affects whether or not someone is going to purchase your product or engage with your business or anything like that. And you kind of said it perfectly, because when you went through and you named every single one of those brands, I knew every single one of the ones that you were talking about, right? Even, the Casper mattress and being able to use the craft
Dollar Shave Club,
all this stuff. That's all stuff that I know that I've heard, and pretty much everybody listening to this has somehow encountered that in the digital space over the last 5 years.
And so now what I tell people, go back and think like who you bought from before, right? What'd you do before Dollar Shave Club? I guess I went to the drugstore and bought Gillette razors or something, right? What did I do before my wife bought the Keurig? Oh, I probably had a crappy old, Mr. Coffee machine. Right. Warby Parker. Warby's wonderful. I love those guys. I mean, I literally talk about an experience. It's, what did I used to do? I used to have to go in. I saw a great one today. Go into the store, feel totally intimidated because there's way too many pairs of glasses that were all like way overpriced. And then I'd have to take somebody in there that could actually, give me critical view, because I don't know. Now you can put them on, send pictures of them, post them on Instagram, right? And then have people say, yeah, I like that pair. I don't like that pair. So all of these things yes, they have some meets minimum in their sort of user experience, but they've also taken their stuff a step further. Dollar Shave Club's great. You started by just buying razors, but now I buy everything from them because it's just so damn easy. And I don't really care what toothpaste I use or what hair crap I put in or what soap I use, but I get it all in a package once every couple of months.
You're set.
I don't have to worry about it. I'm all set.
There's an example that people use all the time, and it's actually a comparison of Bezos and when he first started Amazon, right? And not everybody, actually, there's a pretty good percentage of people that I talk to that don't know that he started out just selling books. But that's it. Yeah. Nothing.
That was the whole goal.
Books. And he started out, and when people were telling him, there's no way that you're going to be able to replace the experience of going into a bookstore and hunting down the book that you want to find and purchasing the physical copy, and that, we're not going to be reading things on digital things like Kindles that are kicking books' asses, or, any of this other stuff. And he basically, the business model is, whether or not this mom and pop shop or this bookstore or whatever has been open for 30 years, it doesn't matter. If the end user can get a product on their front doorstep $2 cheaper with free 2-day shipping and not have to worry about anything else, they just have one button that they click and it shows up at their house. Which one are you going to choose? The one that shows up on your doorstep for $2 less, or go driving to the bookstore to go purchase the book? And there's a lot of people that enjoy that experience, but the majority of consumers, like you said, don't care what type of toothpaste or, what this type of stuff is. They just want the convenience.
Now, or the experience, ease of use. I don't know how much time we got, but I want to I got a comment. I want to just sort of, before we move on to something else about the whole, your guest that's coming up, who's doing, say it again, your podcast guest. What's his role? Guy? Yeah. What's his, So
Squadcast is the
company, the guy you're interviewing. His background is in
you're talking about Shui. He was a previous guest of ours.
Yeah. So I just posted. So for those of you that want to listen to Shui's episode, it's posted inside of the Facebook comments here. But his background is in human factor engineering and user experience.
That's right. Those were too big for my small brain to retain for more than 5 minutes. So humor. So the whole point I want to make is,
Dude, if you have a small brain, you know we're screwed, right?
Yeah,
There's just too much shit running around in it.
smooth brain over here.
So I'm gonna lose my point again. I'm gonna have to start all over again. So my point is, and one of the things that I'm sort of on a bit of a soapbox, particularly, I work with a lot of designers, a lot of product managers, a lot of engineers, a lot of people that and that apply user-centric design or design thinking, all this stuff. But my beef is that they stop at the sales process. So they'll do great work in figuring out what the user-centric design is. They'll do great prototyping. They'll do agile deployment. They'll fail fast. They'll pivot. They'll do all the, they'll come up with quick sprints, and they'll come up with they'll get everybody moving quickly and agile, and they'll develop a product, let's say. And then they hand it over to a sales team and go sell it. And most of the sales teams I coach and mentor sell like we sold in 1985. And so I would say to the audience, my ask is don't and people may come back and tell me I'm crazy, which happens most of the time, but every now and then but don't stop with the whole empathy, user-centric engineering piece. Take it all the way through to when you sell the product or service or whatever you're doing. It's one of my, I just can't, and I can't find anybody that's really doing that. I see great organizations, including the one I work for, that are doing great things on the product side, but they just sort of hand it over to these guys and go, here you go sell it. And you go, okay, what do? I sell it like I sold it in 20 years ago.
Right.
Anyway.
Which is actually exactly why this is a little bit of a spoiler, I guess, but me and Schweiz have been talking about what it would look like for him to come and join our team at some point. Because with that background, and I told him, I was like, it's not because of the master's degree. Yes, that's an added bonus, right? The fact that you have traditional training and a degree in what we talk about, which is nice because all three of us just have the street degrees. So having somebody that actually has a real degree,
the credible one,
right? Exactly. We could just be like, hey, no, we have a dude with a master's. Look at him. Here he is. But the fact that he stepped outside of his comfort zone, went outside of the box, found a new degree style. Actually, he just commented, he said, I completely agree with everything that John just said. User experience needs to be a part of every single phase of product design. And beyond that, directly teaching how the product is sold.
Yeah.
So, and
bingo.
that's bingo bango. Somebody from the sales side directly and somebody on the user experience side and the actual research section of it. Which is why we do a lot of the things the way that we do them. I always say like our job with Apex, because we've expanded into video, we've expanded into the consulting, we've expanded into this other stuff. My job is not to see your vision for you. It's to see it with you and to help you the tools to get you to where you want to go and where your customers need you to be. And like talking to business owners, because I've been around you, John, for the last 2 years, it's so no-duh to me at this point to reverse engineer what the end user actually wants. But a lot of times I talk to these business owners and they're like, oh, we're going to do this because this person or this Google article says that it works. And I was like, okay, well, have you actually built a persona for any of your people? And I'm not talking a persona with just demographics, gender, income level, and ethnicity, right? Or whatever else you want to include in that. Have you gone deeper than that and built an empathy map, or actually looked at the response? If you're putting out these advertisements, are they engaging? And most of the time they're like, oh, we don't really look at that kind of stuff. We just try to stay. Their method of staying on top of the digital footprint is trying to find these articles that like people like Gary Vee or Pat Flynn or some of these major players in the game put out, and then implementing them without any background knowledge on how they actually work.
Mm-hmm.
So
the cool thing about user-centric design, or whatever you want to call it, is it's a convergent and divergent process. So you start by converging. So you converge the personas and the stakeholder maps and the empathy maps and the needs and things like that. Then you diverge out with, thinking about big ideas and prioritizing them and things like that. And then you converge back in to, like, okay, how do those big ideas, how do I prioritize those things, and how do I build value statements around them that then allow me to build an experience-based roadmap.
Mm-hmm.
And you start small, right? You start with, we call them the cupcakes, birthday cakes, wedding cakes. So the cupcake is something small, something that doesn't cost a lot of money, something that can be deployed quickly, but still tastes good, right? Versus the wedding cake, which is something that's a serious commitment, a lot of money. It's you don't just go into it willy-nilly, right? And so it's the beauty of trying to understand sort of this sort of converge from the outside in, and then diverge from the inside out, and then converge back in. And if you do that throughout the entire process, I think you'll find amazing success as far as selling stuff that people want to buy.
Mm-hmm. And there it is. I mean, I think that really just, my last question was why is brand presence and awareness going to be so important after all of this? Because of the online space, and I'm picturing voice control. If you tell Alexa that you want peanut butter, it's just going to pick whatever the top selling peanut butter item is on Amazon and ship it to your house. But if you specifically say, I want Jif peanut butter, then you get Jif peanut butter. But that's all centered around brand awareness. And I'm not going to ask that, because I think that throughout this entire conversation, we've hit it. People they're thinking about Dollar Shave Club. They're thinking about Casper mattresses. They're thinking
we're out here giving free promos.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, if anybody sees this and they buy a Casper mattress, you let me know, and I'll send that, purchase that you made to Casper and be like, yo.
Good. Tell Dollar Shave Club they could sponsor me.
Yeah, you need it, buddy.
Yeah. You haven't even seen the shoulders.
I'm just a gorilla of a human being. Oopsies.
Yeah. You wouldn't even be able to tell he wasn't wearing a shirt.
But to your point, and I know we're running out of time here, I think, but your point on branding is it's not just about the logo and all that stuff, right? It's about the brand, the personal brand. So I'm going to go down to the entrepreneur level, the sole proprietor, the startup, the scale up companies that are, where, the founder is doing the sales and the marketing and the accounting and and sometimes the delivery of the service. It's right. Like, well, you guys are in this boat, right? And it's like, so making your personal brand and your Apex brand in this case, or whatever, is recognizable through lots of different areas, right? It can't, the first time that somebody, you pick up the phone and talk to somebody, say, hi, I'm Jan from Apex Communications, you want to buy my stuff? They're going to go, what? But if you've set this, if you've been with them along the journey, right, and you've provided them stuff like you're doing today, this sort of thought leadership, and you're giving them things of value, then when they are ready to buy, you'll be on the top of their list.
Yep.
So that's my parting words, I suppose. Is brand is important. It's not the, don't go hire a really good graphic artist to make it your logo or whatever really pretty. It's the meat behind the brand. It's important.
Mm-hmm. It's what you stand for.
Yeah,
I think so. I think that's really what it's going to break down to, and it's going to be even more so as everybody's in this unstable position, trying to either rebuild a company that really got hit or start a new company.
Yep.
What you do and what you stand for and the value that you provide people up front without expecting anything in return is what people are going to remember.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, and things like this breed innovation, right? And so, one of my hobbies is I love to drink craft beer, and there's a company here in Cleveland called, I'm going to give them a plug, but they're called Masthead. and they're downtown Cleveland, and I live out in the suburbs. And they put their stuff on this app called Craft Cellar, and every week they come up with a new run, and the cans are available, and you can go in there and order them, and they'll deliver them to your door. Right? They're shut down as a restaurant and a brewery, but they figured out a way, and they're selling like hotcakes. The guy called me up the other day, goes, I had to expand my delivery to 4 days a week now. So they're selling everything they can make. And part of it's because guys like me are trying to support them locally, but that's a good example of somebody that's just, they're sort of the world fell on them, right?
Gotta adapt.
I mean, they got probably most of their businesses, most of their traffic through baseball and football and basketball and concerts and other stuff going on downtown, right? Now all of a sudden that's shut down, they're shut down, and all of a sudden now they're fully busy and they're out all day delivering cases of beer to clowns like me. So next time I'm bringing a beer to the meeting because I see Jan was drinking one.
Yeah, I had a list.
Oh, he froze. This is why, though, my buddy, as soon as we started, saw him drinking that, was just like, what is he doing? He goes, what is he doing drinking a Bud Light seltzer? That's for Nancy boys. He said, tell him to get a claw and disregard the laws.
Really?
Well. He said, didn't he, if he's just sit here and wait because his internet will need to pick back up?
Yeah, we can keep BSing. I don't know how this works. Do we have a time limit, or do we keep talking to
people? No, you can
hang out
as long as you want to. But how's everything else been? Good.
Here he comes.
I haven't seen or talked to you in person here in a while.
I know. Are you back, buddy?
Oh, there we go. He's back.
Happened at least once.
Dude, we were gonna have a nice conversation without you. Yeah.
So
by the way,
we were just dissing you on the seltzer.
Yeah, Noodles wanted me to tell you that Bud Light seltzer is for Nancy boys, and to get yourself a claw and disregard the laws.
That's funny. Dude, I just pictured him saying that.
Nancy boys.
Oh man. Anyway, but okay, so a listener found out that I was drinking White Claws while I was working, and she's actually a sales rep for Anheuser-Busch.
Oh, never. I take it back.
And she was like, no. If you're gonna be drinking something like that, it might as well be my product. And I was like, oh, okay. She's like, I'll drop off a case. She was like, I've watched like all of your live streams. I appreciate what you're doing. I'll drop off a case at the door. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to turn down a free case of seltzer.
Are they good? I've never had one of the Bud Light ones.
They're all right.
Obviously, Ian's not a fan.
Yeah, well, Ian's an interesting human. So, all right. Well, before we dive down too many more rabbit holes, I know that John wants to be able to probably do dinner and eat and hang out with his family.
This is true.
So, John, I appreciate you taking the time, my friend.
Thank you very much.
A lot of fun. I wasn't sure what to expect, and
I appreciate.
I actually did know what to expect because I talk to Jan all the time. But it was, you never quite know until you get on here live. So
very true. I appreciate the human interaction.
Pontificate.
Yeah, and I think that this will definitely not be the last time that this happens. For sure. For those of you that are watching right now, our plan is to be able to integrate some of John's pontifical wisdom into the Apex podcast for a short period of time, and then hopefully seduce him into getting his own show. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm working on it. And in the meantime, if anybody, my name is pretty unique, so I'm easy to find. I don't do Facebook a lot after I read the book The Four, but I definitely am on LinkedIn. And so anybody has any questions or whatever, just shoot me a message or reach out and connect. I'm happy.
John's a good dude, everybody. He'll scratch your back if you scratch his. So let him know.
I learned just as much from you guys. You've taught me a lot of stuff already about what I'm trying to do and thinking, and so I figure it's good for everybody. So
the more the merrier. The more brains you can put together and work on stuff, the better.
Oh shit.
So, all right, John. Well, I appreciate your time again.
Peace,
for those
buddy.
of you that want to try to connect with him, it's John Kundtz, Kundtz.
Correct.
On LinkedIn.
Scrolling down there at the bottom.
Yep, and it's it is scrolling at the bottom. Look at that. Make sure you connect with him on LinkedIn. He will be here in the future. And our next live stream with the Apex Communications Network will be this coming Tuesday at 7 p.m. with hashtag Let's Talk About Something Else with our local life coach, Miss Kathy Yaros. So
So
we
can
will
I
see
jump
you
on that
guys-
one?
Yeah, you're more than welcome, my friend.
Ooh,
Now that
I
you're
love-
allowed to be on
Now
camera,
that you're connected.
I love talking about something else.
so we will see you guys Tuesday at 7 p.m. And until next time, keep chasing that apex.
See you guys.
Cheers.